Welcome back to the channel. Before we start, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone in your life, a teacher, a boss, a parent, anyone, who made you feel small just because they could? Someone who convinced you that you were less until one day you proved them wrong in a way they could never forget? Yeah, this is one of those stories. She used to rip up my assignments. She used to tell me I was incompetent. She made me start every single school day at the very bottom of her behavior chart, even when I hadn't done anything wrong. But the same teacher who spent months calling me stupid was eventually forced to stand on a stage and read a full announcement about the best piece of work in her class, written by me. A book I created just to spite her, a book that still sits in the school library today with a tag that literally says, "Written in spite of Mrs. Underscore." This is the story of how a kid she tried to break broke her instead. Elementary school should have been simple. Friends, recess, crayons, math sheets, spelling tests, the basics. But for me, every day started with one thing: a wooden board with colorful clothespins clipped along it. Green for good behavior, yellow for warning, red for trouble. Most kids started the day in the middle, a fresh slate. A chance to do better, not me. Every morning, every single one, I'd walk into class and see my clothespin already clipped all the way at the bottom, before I'd said a word, before attendance, before we even unpacked our backpacks. And she'd look straight at me and say, "Well, we know how you usually behave." This just saves time. I wasn't a bad kid, not even close. Quiet, maybe a little slow in spelling, messy handwriting, but not bad. Still, she treated me like the worst troublemaker in the county. It wasn't just the clips. She made comments, sharp ones. Ones that stick with a kid for years. "You're incompetent. You can't do anything correctly. Why is this so hard for you? Do you even try?" Her words stung in that deep, humiliating way that only an adult's disappointment can hurt a child. And the worst part? Even when I did try, even when I poured my whole little heart into something, she made sure to crush it. One day I'd worked on a writing project. A full page. Careful sentences. My best handwriting, which still wasn't very good, and spelling that I checked and rechecked, even though spelling was never my strong suit. I remember handing it to her like it was something fragile. She skimmed it for maybe 3 seconds. Then tore it right in front of me, ripped it in half, then in quarters. Then in eighths. "There," she said, letting the pieces fall into the trash can. No point in keeping something this sloppy. I felt something in my chest collapse. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was more like the feeling you get when someone blows out a candle you were saving. That tiny flicker inside you goes dark. But here's the funny thing about kids. Sometimes when an adult tries to burn them down, it ends up forging something much stronger. A few months later, our school changed buildings. A fresh start, or at least it should have been. The new campus came with a shiny new library and, strangely enough, a special printer that could print books, like actual bound books. Kids thought it was the coolest thing ever. Teachers did too. But for me, standing in that library for the first time, looking at the rows of books and that printer humming quietly, something started to spark. A quiet idea, small, ridiculous at first, but it grew. If my teacher thought my writing was garbage, what if I wrote something so good she had to acknowledge it? What if I created something she couldn't rip up, couldn't fail, couldn't ignore? What if I wrote a book? Now, let me be clear, I was a child. Not a prodigy, not some secret literary genius. Just a kid who was tired of being told he couldn't do anything, so I started writing every day after school, every weekend morning, at the kitchen table, in my room, even sneakily during class when she wasn't paying attention. It wasn't easy. My spelling was rough, still is. My handwriting looked like the letters were trying to escape the page. But I wrote anyway. Pages turned into chapters. Chapters turned into a story. A story turned into a surprisingly thick little book. By the time I finished, I'd created a full fantasy adventure. Dragons, forests, magical creatures, the whole deal. But it still needed help. A lot of help. So I did something that would have made my teacher scream. I sent it to an actual editor. Not some professional New York publisher, just someone who helped kids clean up writing. And this editor didn't rip it up, didn't call it sloppy, didn't say I couldn't do anything. She said, "There's something special here." Those words alone could have made me cry. The editor cleaned up my spelling, polished my writing, and helped shape it into something real. And then came the final step, printing it. Holding the finished book in my hands felt unreal. It had weight, a cover, pages that turned, a story that lived. And inside the library, I saw that printer, the one everyone was excited about, and I thought, yeah, let's immortalize this. After talking to the librarian and convincing her to help, the book was unofficially added to the school library. Entered into the system, given a barcode, shelved in the fantasy section, but I wasn't done. I still had one more thing to do. Something bold. Something that made my heart race just thinking about it. Our school had a yearly event, a student showcase. Each teacher had to present the best piece of work created by a student in their class. My teacher never chose anything of mine, ever, but I convinced the principal to let my book be considered. He actually read it, really read it. And when he finished, he smiled and said, "This is the best project in your class." That meant only one thing: my teacher had to present it. Not just hold it up, not just show it, she had to read from it. Introduce it, applaud it, celebrate it. When they told her, she froze. I remember watching her face drain of color as the principal handed her a copy. She tried to argue. "He didn't do this alone. This isn't real work. There must be some mistake." But the principal shut her down, firmly. "This is the best work in your class. You will present it." And suddenly, months of insults, humiliation, ripping, tearing, clipping down, came crashing back onto her. Because now she was the one who had to hold up something she'd spent the entire year saying I wasn't capable of. For the next few days, she kept the book on her desk. She read it. Cover to cover, slowly. Every page must have been a reminder of how wrong she'd been. Then the showcase came. Parents, students, teachers, the whole school gathered. Each class went up one by one, and then came ours. She stood on that stage with my book in her hands. Her voice was stiff. Her smile was fake, but she had to do it. She had to announce that the best piece of work in her class, the stupid class, as she liked to call it, was a book written by a student she'd spent all year tearing down. She had to read the description, talk about the creativity, the dedication, the effort. She had to praise me, and when she said my name, the whole room clapped. I stood there watching her, and for once, she had nothing to say. No insult, no disgust. No comment about my handwriting, nothing, just silence. My book won first place in the entire school competition. A teacher from another class announced it. Kids checked it out from the library. Some even asked me to sign it. And to this day, years later, it still sits in the school library, far in the back of the fantasy section, a little worn, a little dusty, but still there. And on the title page, right under the dedication, I wrote, "Written in spite of Mrs. Underscore," her real name, not my teacher, no hiding. Everyone knew exactly who it referred to. She didn't stay at the school after that year. Funny how that works. If this story hit home, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories where justice isn't just served, it's crafted. And tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest or most satisfying revenge you ever saw in school? Thanks for watching. Until next time.